Good evening, everyone. There's a moment in every person's life when they're faced with a choice. The choice to either rise or remain stagnant. The choice to conquer or to allow life's challenges to drag them down. It's easy to say we're going to do something, but it's much harder to do it when life gets tough. I'm here to tell you today, you need to kill your weak feelings. Those feelings that tell you you're not enough, those voices that say you can't, those doubts that creep into your mind when things don't go the way you planned. Those are the feelings that hold you back from being who you're supposed to be. So let's talk about how we're going to kill those weak feelings and step into the strength we all possess. We all know the feeling, the weight that presses down on your chest when you're not sure if you can keep going. The frustration, the self-doubt, the anger or the fear. It creeps in when you least expect it. You might feel it when you're at your lowest, when the world feels like it's turned its back on you. And in that moment, it's easy to try and ignore it. It's easy to push it down, act like it's not there, and hope it will disappear on its own. But let me tell you something. It won't. Those feelings don't just vanish because you choose to ignore them. They sit there in the background, festering. And if you keep running from them, if you keep pretending like they don't exist, you're giving them the power to control you. The truth is, you can't kill what you don't confront. Those weak feelings, you can't just pretend they're not there and expect them to go away. You've got to face them head on. You've got to look them in the eye, acknowledge them for what they are, and understand that they don't define you. They're just emotions. They're temporary, they come and go. But the way you respond to them, that's what defines who you are. Take a moment to think about it. Think about a time in your life when you faced something tough. Maybe you lost a job, maybe you failed at something you worked hard for, maybe you experienced heartbreak. In that moment, you felt all kinds of things. Fear, anger, sadness, even resentment. But here's the thing. Those emotions weren't permanent. They didn't last forever, unless you let them. The difference between someone who makes it through those tough moments and someone who gets stuck in them is their ability to face those emotions, acknowledge them, and then decide, this is not who I am. This is just something I'm going through. I know it's not easy. Trust me, I know. There are times when the weight of it all feels like it might crush you, but it won't unless you let it. Those feelings, they're not you. They're just part of the journey. You can't escape them, but you can control how you deal with them. Let's be real. No one has ever accomplished anything significant by avoiding their feelings. If you want to move forward, you've got to be honest with yourself. You've got to confront those feelings. Look at them and say, yeah, I'm scared. Yeah, I'm frustrated. Yeah, I'm angry. But that's not who I am. That's just something I'm feeling right now. And then you move forward despite those feelings. It's easy to pretend like everything's fine, like you've got it all together, like you're unaffected. But deep down, you know that's not the truth. Running from those emotions, pushing them down, pretending like they don't exist, it doesn't work. All it does is make you weaker. It makes you afraid, and it keeps you stuck in that same cycle over and over again. But when you face your emotions, when you acknowledge that they're there and you don't let them control you, that's when you begin to take back your power. Look at people who have been through hardships, people who have faced incredible adversity. Whether it's losing a loved one, going through a financial struggle, or fighting through a physical or mental health battle, the people who come out of those tough times stronger, the ones who don't just survive but thrive, are the ones who didn't hide from their feelings. They didn't run from their pain. They faced it. They understood that it was part of their journey, but it wasn't who they were. They said, this is a chapter in my story, not the whole book. Think about a person who loses their job. That feeling of rejection, that feeling of not being enough, that can cut deep. They may feel a sense of anger, frustration, even shame. But the person who moves through that is the one who faces those emotions, who acknowledges that yes, they're feeling those things, but who refuses to let that define them. They might take a moment to process, to grieve, to feel the pain, but then they get back up. They don't let the job loss define their worth. They understand that their value is not tied to that one moment, and they move forward, stronger, wiser, and ready to take on the next challenge. Or think about a student who fails an exam. It's easy to feel like a failure, to fall into self-doubt, to start believing that they're not good enough, that they're not cut out for this. But the ones who make it are the ones who face those feelings. They acknowledge the disappointment, but they don't let it stop them. They don't let it hold them back. They say, this exam didn't define me. I'm going to learn from this. I'm going to get better, and I'm going to keep going. That's the power of acknowledging your weak feelings. You're not ignoring them. You're not pushing them down, and you're not pretending like they don't exist. You're looking them square in the eye, acknowledging them for what they are, and deciding that they don't control you. You're taking back the power that those emotions try to steal from you. And in that moment, you begin to take control of your life. You begin to define who you are, not by what happens to you, but by how you respond to what happens to you. So when you're faced with those weak feelings, when you're feeling fear, doubt, anger, or insecurity, don't run, don't hide, don't pretend like they're not there. Acknowledge them. Look at them. Accept that they're part of the process. But know this, they are not permanent. They do not define you. They are just something you're going through. And when you confront those feelings, when you decide not to let them control you, you give yourself the power to rise above them. You give yourself the power to grow stronger with every challenge, with every setback, with every difficult emotion. That's how you kill weak feelings. By facing them, not running from them. By acknowledging that they're there, and then refusing to let them define who you are. You can't kill what you don't confront. So don't be afraid to face your weak feelings. Confront them, learn from them, and use them to propel yourself forward. That's how you rise above. That's how you become the person you were always meant to be. We've all been there. You're going through your day, trying to stay focused, trying to stay positive, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, doubt starts creeping in. A little voice in your head starts telling you that you're not enough, that you don't have what it takes. Maybe you make a mistake, or things don't go the way you expected, and suddenly, those weak feelings of frustration, self-doubt, or anger take over. You start to feel like you're losing, like you're falling behind. But here's the thing you need to understand. Those feelings, they're temporary. They don't last forever unless you let them. And if you let them take control, they'll sabotage your progress. What will keep you in the game? Your mind. You see, your mind is like a muscle. It gets stronger the more you train it, the more you discipline it. But if you let your mind run wild with negativity, if you let those weak feelings take root and guide your thoughts, they will control your actions. That's the danger. And if your thoughts control your actions, you'll end up exactly where you don't want to be. Stuck, defeated, and hopeless. But here's the good news. You have the power to change that. You have the ability to control your mind. Discipline isn't just about forcing yourself to do something you don't want to do. It's about mastering your thoughts, your reactions, and ultimately your decisions. It's about training your mind to shut down the negative thoughts before they take root. It's about learning how to refocus when your mind starts to wander into those dark places. You've got to discipline your mind the same way an athlete disciplines their body. Think about a professional athlete. Their career depends on them performing at the highest level every single time they step onto the field or court. But do you think they're always perfect? No, they make mistakes, they miss shots, they fumble the ball, they mess up in practice. But do they let one mistake, one bad day, define who they are? Absolutely not. They know that negative feelings are a part of the game. They're not going to let one bad practice ruin their performance in the next game. They don't let those emotions take over. Instead, they have discipline. They know that the feeling of frustration or failure after a mistake is temporary. It doesn't define who they are. What defines them is how they respond. How quickly do they shake it off and get back on track? How quickly do they refocus on the next play? That's the discipline. It's not about perfection, it's about focus. It's about staying in the game no matter what happens. You've got to do the same in your life. You can't let one setback, one failure, one mistake define you. You've got to train your mind to stay focused on the goal, to stay focused on the outcome, not on the obstacle. Life is going to throw challenges at you. People are going to doubt you. You're going to face rejection. You'll encounter failure. But those things don't define you. How you respond does. When those weak feelings show up, and they will, you've got to shut them down. Don't entertain them. Don't let them take root. Acknowledge them, yes, but don't give them the power to control you. You've got to refocus your mind on the outcome you want. When you train your mind, when you discipline it, you learn how to stay calm in the face of adversity. You learn how to turn frustration into fuel. You learn how to see obstacles as opportunities to grow rather than reasons to quit. I want you to think about the last time you faced a setback, when things didn't go as planned. What was your reaction? Did you get caught up in those weak feelings? Or did you take a step back and remind yourself that this is just a temporary moment? Did you get lost in self-pity? Or did you discipline your mind to stay focused on your end goal? The difference between success and failure is how you control your mind. When you let weak feelings take over, you allow them to dictate your actions. But when you train your mind, when you discipline yourself to stay focused on the outcome, you'll push through. It's not about never feeling negative emotions. It's about not letting those emotions control your actions. It's about staying calm, staying focused, and moving forward no matter what. And let's be real here for a second. Life isn't going to be easy. It's going to test you. You're going to feel like giving up, like it's not worth it. But that's when your mind has to step in. That's when the discipline kicks in. That's when you remind yourself that the obstacle is not the end of the road. It's just a detour, a challenge, something to overcome. You don't back down. You don't give in. You stay focused, you stay disciplined, and you keep moving forward. The mind is a powerful thing. It can either be your greatest asset or your greatest enemy. The choice is yours. If you allow negative thoughts to rule your mind, they'll limit your potential. But if you train your mind to focus, to block out the noise, and to respond to adversity with strength and purpose, then there's no limit to what you can accomplish. So the next time those weak feelings show up, when doubt starts to creep in, when frustration threatens to pull you off course, remember this: it's not the obstacle that matters, it's how you respond to it. Discipline your mind to stay focused on the outcome. Don't let the weakness take root. Be strong, be focused, and stay in the game. You know, we live in a world that loves success. We see the shiny cars, the big houses, the fancy titles, and we want it all. But what you need to understand is that success doesn't come without failure. Matter of fact, failure is part of the journey. It's something that you're going to have to face if you want to rise to the top. The reason many of us feel weak is because we're afraid to fail. We're afraid of the judgment that comes with it, the embarrassment of not getting it right, the fear of losing something, whether that's status, respect, or just pride. But here's the truth. Failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is a part of success. And if you're not failing, you're not growing. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. You're not pushing yourself. Think about it for a minute. Take someone like Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors in history. Do you think he woke up one day and invented the light bulb on his first try? Absolutely not. He didn't get it right the first time, the second time, or even the 10th time. In fact, Edison failed thousands of times. Thousands. When he was asked about his failures, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That mindset right there, that's what changed the world. He didn't see failure as the end of the road. He saw it as a step forward. He embraced it. He learned from it. And he used it to fuel his next attempt. Now, I want you to think about yourself for a moment. Think about the times you've failed in your life. Think about the times you've tried something and it didn't work out the way you planned. Maybe it was a job you wanted and didn't get. Maybe it was a relationship that ended, or maybe it was a business idea that fell apart. You felt that sting, didn't you? That sense of defeat, of disappointment, like the world was telling you, you're not good enough. But listen to me, failure is not your enemy. Failure is a lesson. If you want to get to the next level, you have to learn how to embrace failure, not run from it. When you fail, it's an opportunity. It's a chance to ask yourself, what went wrong? What can I do better? How can I make sure I don't make the same mistake again? That's the mindset you need to have. If you run from failure, you'll never learn the lessons it has to teach you. If you hide from it, you'll never get better. You'll never grow. Every successful person you know, every person you look up to, has faced failure, and you're going to face it too. But it's not the failure that will define you. It's how you rise after that failure. It's how you learn from it, how you grow stronger because of it. Failure will not defeat you unless you allow it. It can't take you down unless you let it. And when it does knock you down, and it will, you've got to get back up, brush yourself off, and try again. Now, I get it. Failing feels bad. Nobody likes it. It stings. It's uncomfortable. But that discomfort is where the magic happens. That's where the growth comes from. The most successful people didn't get where they are because they avoided failure. They got there because they leaned into it. They faced it. They didn't allow themselves to be crushed by it. They took that failure, they learned from it, and they used it as fuel to keep going. Let me tell you something. You have to have a mindset that says, I'm going to fail, but I'm not going to let it break me. You've got to embrace the fact that failure is inevitable. If you're not failing, you're not pushing hard enough. You're not trying new things. You're not challenging yourself. And if you're not challenging yourself, then you're staying stagnant. You're staying right where you are. And that's a place of weakness. Think about the greats in any field, whether it's sports, business, music, or any other profession. They didn't get there by avoiding failure. They got there by embracing it. Michael Jordan missed more shots than he made. Steve Jobs was fired from the company he created. Oprah Winfrey was told she was unfit for television. But did any of them let those failures stop them? No. They kept pushing, kept going, and kept learning. They knew that failure was just another step on the path to success. So I want you to look at your own life and think about the things you've failed at. I want you to think about the times you felt like giving up. Maybe you even did give up for a while. But I'm telling you right now, you can't keep doing that. You can't keep allowing failure to knock you down and keep you there. You've got to rise above it. You've got to keep moving forward. And if you've got to fail again to get where you want to go, then fail it. But do it with the mindset that every time you fail, you're one step closer to success. You're not weak because you fail. You're weak if you allow that failure to make you quit. Don't let failure be the thing that holds you back. Let it be the thing that drives you. Let it be the thing that pushes you to get better, to work harder, to do more. Don't ever be afraid to fail, because that fear will keep you stuck. It will keep you from reaching your true potential. So embrace failure. Take it on with open arms. Learn from it. Let it teach you, let it shape you, and let it sharpen you. Because the only way you're going to get to where you want to be, the only way you're going to achieve greatness is if you learn how to use failure as fuel for the journey. It's easy to look around and start blaming everything and everyone else for where you are in life. You might say to yourself, I didn't get the breaks I deserved, or I'm not where I want to be because of what happened to me. It's easy to fall into that trap because, let's face it, sometimes life hits us hard. People let us down, we face setbacks, and things don't always go the way we want them to. But I need you to hear me loud and clear. Blaming everything and everyone else is a trap. It's a crutch. And if you want to kill those weak feelings, if you want to rise above the struggle, you've got to stop blaming and start owning. When you point the finger at the world, at the circumstances, at the people who have hurt you, you give away your power. You're telling yourself that you have no control, that you're a victim of your circumstances. And the moment you start believing that, you've already lost. You've given up the one thing that can change everything: responsibility. Let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it's the truth. You are where you are right now because of the choices you've made. That doesn't mean life hasn't been tough. It doesn't mean you haven't faced challenges or made mistakes. It doesn't mean people haven't wronged you or that circumstances haven't been stacked against you. But ultimately, you are responsible for your own journey. You are the one who decides how you respond to the challenges. You are the one who decides whether you let those weak feelings take over or whether you stand up and fight back. You've got to take ownership. Own your life. Own your choices. Own the way you respond to the things that happen to you. You see, when you take ownership, you take control. You stop being a passenger in your own life. You stop waiting for someone to hand you an opportunity. You stop waiting for someone to make things right. And you start making things happen for yourself. Look, I know it's easy to get caught up in the past. I know it's easy to look back at what didn't work out, the times you were overlooked, the doors that were slammed in your face. We've all been there. But if you stay stuck in the past, you'll never move forward. You'll never break free. You can't change what's already happened. But you can change what happens next. You can make a new choice. You can decide that today is the day you stop making excuses and start taking responsibility for your future. Think about people like Oprah Winfrey. There was a time when she was told she wasn't TV material. People told her she was too ugly, too unrefined, too unpolished. But she didn't let those voices control her. She didn't let those people's opinions dictate her path. She took ownership of her own story, her own destiny, and she turned it into one of the greatest success stories of all time. Did she face challenge? Absolutely. Did people try to hold her back? You bet. But she didn't let that define her. She made the decision to rise above it. And then there's Steve Jobs, the man who founded Apple, a company that changed the world. But guess what? Steve Jobs was fired from the very company he started. Think about that for a second. He built Apple from the ground up, and then just like that, he was out. Most people would have quit at that point. Most people would have blamed others, given up, and walked away, but not Jobs. He didn't let that setback define him. He didn't point the finger at those who fired him. He didn't make excuses. He took ownership. He went on to create Pixar, and eventually he returned to Apple, where he revolutionized the tech world once again. What do these two stories tell us? They tell us that no matter what happens to you, no matter how unfair life seems, no matter how many doors get slammed in your face, you always have a choice. You always have the power to rise up, to take ownership, and to create the future you want for yourself. If you're sitting there right now, looking at your life, and you're thinking, I'm not where I want to be. Ask yourself why. If it's because you haven't been taking ownership of your choices, if it's because you've been blaming others or letting circumstances control your actions, then it's time to make a change. You have the power to take control. You have the power to decide how you're going to respond to what's happened to you. You don't need anyone's permission to take ownership of your own life. It's yours, and it's time you started treating it like it. Every day is a new opportunity. You have the power to decide what you're going to do with it. You can't control everything that happens to you, but you can control how you react to it. You can control what you learn from it. You can control how hard you fight to overcome it. But you can't do any of that if you don't own it. If you don't take responsibility for your choices, then you'll always be at the mercy of your circumstance. You'll always be a passenger in your own life. It's time to stop looking for someone else to blame. It's time to stop playing the victim. It's time to stand up and take full ownership of your life. When you do that, when you stop making excuses and take control, that's when things start to change. That's when you start to move forward. You've got everything inside you to get where you want to go. The only thing standing in your way is your unwillingness to take ownership. So ask yourself, what are you going to do with today? How are you going to take responsibility for your future? You've got the power to change everything, but it starts with one thing, taking ownership. And once you do that, there's nothing that can stop you. There are times in life when you feel like you're stuck. You feel like no matter how hard you try, no matter how much you push, you're not getting anywhere. The road seems long, the mountain too steep, and the finish line just a blurry vision in the distance. Weak feelings show up, doubt, frustration, despair, and they can paralyze you. They make you question whether it's all worth it, whether you should just stop and turn back. But listen to me. The key to breaking through all of that is this: never stop moving forward. I know it sounds simple, but let me tell you something. Sometimes the hardest part is just putting one foot in front of the other when all you want to do is give up. The truth is, progress is still progress, no matter how slow it feels. Even when you're crawling, even when you feel like you're barely moving, you're still moving. You're still going forward. And that's all that matters. As long as you're not standing still, as long as you're still putting in that effort, you are moving towards something greater. Think of it like climbing a mountain. When you stand at the bottom and look up at the peak, it feels impossible. It looks so far away, and the climb looks like it's going to take everything out of you. The terrain is rocky, it's steep, and you might even wonder if you're cut out for the challenge. But here's the truth. You don't have to climb the whole mountain in one leap. The key isn't about how fast you get to the top. It's about taking it one step at a time. It's about moving forward, even when you don't feel like it, even when it seems like you're not getting anywhere. The moment you decide that you're going to keep going, no matter how hard it gets, you've already won half the battle. Think about a time when you felt like giving up. Maybe it was a project that wasn't going the way you wanted. Maybe it was a dream that felt like it was slipping away, like no matter how much you put into it, you couldn't make any headway. Or maybe you were just dealing with life every day, feeling like an uphill battle, and you weren't sure if you had the strength to keep pushing. But then something inside you made you take another step. You kept moving. You decided that even if it wasn't happening as fast as you wanted, you weren't going to quit. And you know what? That's when things started to change. You may not see it in the moment, but those small steps add up. The effort you put in when you feel like nothing is happening, when it seems like you're stuck in place, that's where the real work is happening. Momentum is built on persistence. Every step forward, no matter how small, is one step closer to your goal. Every moment that you keep going, even when you feel weak, is one less moment keeping you from success. But it's not just about taking steps. It's about doing so with purpose. It's about having a vision, about knowing why you're pushing yourself when everything in you is telling you to quit. When you're climbing that mountain, it's not the steepness of the path that defeats you. It's your mindset. If you tell yourself that the mountain is too big, too high, too impossible to climb, then it will be. But if you tell yourself that every step you take is getting you closer to the top, that the next step is progress, that's when the climb becomes possible. You have to keep your eyes on the goal, but you also have to give yourself credit for every single step you take, no matter how small it may seem. You don't have to wait for the world to give you permission to keep going. You don't have to wait for someone to tell you that it's okay to take it slow. You don't have to get discouraged just because it's not happening as quickly as you thought. The race is not always won by the person who sprints the fastest. Sometimes the victory goes to the one who keeps moving when everyone else has given up. The one who keeps their head down, keeps grinding, and keeps believing that every small movement counts. Take a moment to reflect on how far you've come, not just in the big wins, but in the little moments where you didn't quit. The times when you felt like giving up, but decided to keep moving anyway. That's where the real strength lies. It's in the perseverance. It's in the ability to keep pushing forward when the road is tough, when the odds are stacked against you, when you feel weak, and when you feel like the world is telling you to stop. It's in those moments when you decide, no, I'm not done yet. I'm not quitting today. There's power in persistence. There's power in showing up even when it feels like you're moving at a crawl. You have no idea how close you are to breaking through. You may feel like you're stuck in the same place, but I promise you, every step you take is progress. That's why you can never stop moving forward, no matter how slow. You never know when that one step will be the one that takes you over the next hurdle, the one that brings you closer to the breakthrough you've been waiting for. If you stop moving, if you allow those weak feelings to convince you that it's not worth it, then you've already lost. You've given up on yourself, and you've stopped believing that there's more waiting for you on the other side of the struggle. The power is in the movement, not in how fast or slow you go. The power is in showing up every day, even when it feels like progress is too slow to notice. Never underestimate the power of small, consistent steps. Each one adds up. Each one gets you closer to your goal, and each one builds momentum that will carry you forward when the going gets tough. Keep moving forward. Keep taking those small steps. Keep fighting even when you feel weak, because the moment you stop, you're one step further from everything you want. So no matter how slow you go, keep moving. The top of that mountain is waiting for you. We all know what it feels like to be knocked down. We all know what it feels like to be in a place where things aren't going the way you planned, and life is throwing punches at you from every direction. Those weak feelings show up: doubt, fear, failure, insecurities, anger, frustration, and they try to take you out. They try to make you believe that you can't go on, that the next step is too hard, or that you're just not good enough. But let me tell you something. Those feelings, those doubts, they don't get to define who you are. They don't get to decide your future. You do. You see, killing your weak feelings is not about being perfect. It's not about pretending that you never feel fear or doubt or discouragement. It's not about putting on a brave face and pretending that everything is okay when it's not. No, it's about being real with yourself. It's about acknowledging your emotions and then refusing to let them control you. It's about showing up even when you don't feel like it. It's about facing those weak feelings head on and saying, you don't own me. You don't get to dictate how I move through this life. Now, I know that may sound easier said than done. Believe me, I understand. There are days when you feel like you're giving everything you've got and still getting nowhere. There are days when you feel like you're walking through mud and every step takes more effort than the last. Those days when you want to quit, when you want to throw in the towel and say, this is too much. But here's the truth. It's those very moments, the ones when you feel like giving up, that define who you are. It's easy to keep going when everything is working in your favor, when the wind is at your back. But when things get tough, when those weak feelings rise up, that's when you find out what you're really made of. When you acknowledge your weak feelings, when you allow yourself to feel the doubt, the fear, the frustration, but you don't let it own you, that's when you unlock your true power. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all together. You just have to keep moving forward even when it feels like you're crawling. It's about persistence, about showing up even when you don't feel like it. Take a moment to think about someone you admire. Maybe it's someone you know personally, or maybe it's a public figure who's inspired you from a distance. What makes them so remarkable? Is it their talent, their natural ability, or is it their ability to keep going even when things got tough? Every successful person, every person who's overcome adversity, has one thing in common. They didn't let their weak feelings stop them. They didn't let the fear of failure or the pain of loss paralyze them. They kept moving, no matter how slow the progress felt. They embraced the struggle and refused to give up. Let's be real for a second. Failure is going to happen. We've all faced setbacks. We've all had moments where things didn't go the way we hoped, where we fell short of our own expectations. But failure doesn't define you unless you let it. It's not the fact that you fail that matters. It's how you rise from it. It's how you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and say, I'm not done yet. Failure is a part of success. It's a part of the journey. You have to embrace it, learn from it, and keep moving forward. The people who make it aren't the ones who avoid failure. They're the ones who refuse to let failure make them quit. And that's where the real power lies, in your response. It's easy to stay stuck in your feelings. It's easy to say, I can't do this anymore, or this is too hard. But if you let those feelings control you, if you let them dictate your actions, then you'll never get anywhere. You'll never get to the top of that mountain you've been climbing. But if you decide right now that you're going to keep moving, even if it's slow, even if it's one step at a time, that's when things start to shift. Remember, the journey isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. Sometimes you're not going to make huge strides in a single day. Sometimes you're going to feel like you're moving at a crawl, and that's okay. As long as you're still moving, you're still progressing. Don't compare your progress to someone else's. Don't look at the person next to you and think that they're doing better or going farther faster. You don't know what they've been through, what struggles they've faced, or how hard they've had to fight to get where they are. Focus on your own path. Focus on your own journey, and keep moving forward. There's a story about a man who was walking up a steep hill. It was hard. His legs were burning, his breath was shallow, and every step felt heavier than the last. But he kept going. He kept putting one foot in front of the other. And eventually, after what seemed like an eternity, he reached the top. He looked back down at the long, hard journey he'd just completed, and he smiled. He didn't smile because it was easy. He smiled because he had persevered. He smiled because, despite the pain, despite the doubt, he had kept going. That's how you have to approach life. Even when it feels like the climb is impossible, even when you feel weak, you have to keep going. You don't know how close you are to the top. You don't know how much longer it will take. But as long as you keep moving, you're closer than you think. And yes, there will be days when you feel like you're standing still. Days when you feel like you're getting nowhere, and those weak feelings come rushing in. But here's what I want you to understand. Even when you feel stuck, even when you're crawling, you're still moving. Every small step forward is still a step toward your goal. Every time you decide not to quit, every time you choose to show up, you're building momentum. And momentum, over time, will carry you further than you ever thought possible. So when those weak feelings show up, and they will, remember that they're not permanent. They don't define you. You get to decide who you are and what you're capable of. You get to decide whether you're going to let those feelings control you or whether you're going to rise above them. Life is tough,